The message came at dawn on New Busan. Captain Dae-jung stood on the command deck of the orbital station, watching the massive ships appear one by one in the darkness of space. They were bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Each one looked like a floating city made of dark metal and pulsing lights. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They just kept coming through the jump points, filling the space around the colony world like a swarm of metal insects. Dae-jung had been a military officer for 20 years. He had seen combat. He had faced pirates and raiders. But this was different. This was something that made his hands shake. The communication came through all channels at once. The voice was cold and mechanical, translated by machines into human language. It spoke with absolute certainty, the kind of certainty that came from never being questioned. Attention, human settlement. You are now under the authority of the Valtime Dominion. Your species has been evaluated. You will surrender all military assets within 24 hours. You will provide complete charts of all human territories. You will prepare for integration into the Dominion structure. Resistance will result in complete sterilization of your worlds. You have 1 day. The transmission ended. No room for questions. No negotiation offered. Just a simple choice that was not really a choice at all. Dae-jung immediately sent emergency signals to Earth. The response came within minutes. Admiral Bora herself appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. She looked tired. How many ships? She asked. We stopped counting at 5,000, Admiral. They are still coming. Bora closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she looked older. I am calling an emergency council. Every captain, every commander, everyone who can fight. We meet in 6 hours. Dae-jung looked at the massive fleet surrounding his station. Admiral, with respect, what can we possibly do? Our entire fleet is barely 1,000 ships. These vessels are each 10 times the size of our largest battleship. I know, Captain. I know. Bora's voice was quiet. But we have to try something. We cannot just surrender humanity's future without at least trying. The council meeting happened on Earth, in the old military command center buried deep beneath Seoul. Every screen showed a different face. Ship captains from Mars, colony governors from the outer settlements, military commanders from Luna and Europa, scientists from the research stations. They all looked at the same data, and they all saw the same impossible situation. The Valtime Dominion was not unknown. Humanity had heard stories about them from other species during first contact. An empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Over 2,000 conquered species serving them. Technology so advanced that it seemed like magic. A military that had never lost a war. When humanity first reached the stars 50 years ago, they had been warned. Stay quiet, stay small. Do not attract the Dominion's attention. For half a century, humanity had followed that advice. They built colonies slowly. They kept their military small. They tried to be invisible. It had not worked. Admiral Bora stood before the council screens. Behind her was a map of human space. 37 colony worlds scattered across 20 light years. Earth at the center with 12 billion people. Mars with 3 billion. Luna with 1 billion. The asteroid colonies. The farming worlds. The mining outposts. All of it together held maybe 20 billion human souls. They want an answer in 18 hours, Bora said. They want total surrender. I need to know what humanity's choice is. Do we fight or do we submit? The room filled with voices. Some argued for surrender. What choice did they have? The Dominion could destroy them easily. Maybe submission meant survival. Maybe they could keep their culture, their identity, even under Dominion rule. Others argued for fighting. They would rather die free than live as slaves. Even if they could not win, they could show the Dominion that humans do not give up easily. They could make the enemy remember them. An old captain from the Mars Defense Fleet spoke up. His name was Won Shik, and he had fought in the colony wars 20 years ago. I have studied the Dominion's history. Every species that surrendered to them was broken apart. They take the strong ones for soldiers, the smart ones for workers. The rest are used for whatever the Dominion needs. Families are separated. Children are taken for re-education. Within 3 generations, the conquered species forgets who they were. Is that what we want for our children? The room went quiet. Bora looked at each screen, each face. I will not order humanity to die, but I will not order humanity to surrender either. This choice belongs to all of us. A woman spoke from one of the outer colony worlds. Her name was Subin, and she ran mining operations in the asteroid belt. She was young, maybe 30, with oil stains on her work uniform. My grandfather came from Earth when the colonies were just beginning. He told me stories about the old days when nations on Earth used to conquer each other. He said the worst thing was not the fighting. It was the forgetting. When people forgot who they were because someone else told them who to be. She paused. I vote we fight. One by one the votes came in. Not everyone agreed. Some colonies voted to surrender. Some voted to fight. Some abstained, too afraid to choose. But when the count was finished, the majority was clear. Humanity would stand and face the Dominion. Admiral Bora nodded slowly. Then we fight. God help us all. The meeting ended and the commanders dispersed to their ships and stations. They had 18 hours to prepare for a war they could not win. Across human space, families said goodbyes. Soldiers prepared weapons that seemed like toys compared to the Dominion's power. Scientists ran calculations looking for any advantage, any weakness. Captain Daijung returned to his station above New Busan. The Dominion fleet still filled the sky. He sent one final message to his sister on Earth. Just 3 words. Remember me well. In the darkness of space, the Dominion ships waited. They had done this thousands of times before. Another species, another conquest, another day of expanding the empire that had ruled for 10,000 years. They did not expect anything different from the humans. They were about to learn something new. Taehyun had not slept in 30 hours. He sat in the basement archives of the Seoul Deep Space Research Center, surrounded by old files that nobody had looked at in decades. His eyes hurt from reading screens and his coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept searching. The emergency call had gone out to every scientist, every researcher, every person who might have an idea. Find something, find anything, find a way to fight an enemy that could not be beaten. Taehyun was just a civilian researcher. He studied old space exploration records. He was not a weapons expert or a military strategist, but he had access to files that most people had forgotten existed. The archive was full of projects from humanity's early days in space. Failed experiments, abandoned ideas, things that seemed important at the time but led nowhere. Taehyun had been reading through them for hours, finding nothing useful. Then he found a file marked with red warning symbols, the kind of symbols that meant danger, the kind that meant do not open unless absolutely necessary. The file was called Silent Garden. It was dated 200 years ago from the early exploration period. Taehyun opened it with shaking hands. The first page made him stop breathing. Project Silent Garden. Classified level. 10. Permanent seal order danger. Reality collapse. Potential authorized personnel only. Taehyun kept reading. The project had been led by scientists trying to find faster ways to travel through space. They had discovered something called subspace rupture points, places where the normal universe was thin, where space and time were weak. They found they could tear open these weak points and look into the space between dimensions. The scientists had realized something terrible. These ruptures could be weaponized. If you opened enough of them in the same area, they would spread like cracks in glass. They would tear apart space itself. Everything in the affected area would simply stop existing. Not destroyed, not blown up, just erased from reality. They had tested it once on a small scale, a controlled experiment in an empty part of space. The rupture had worked exactly as predicted. A sphere of space 10 kilometers wide had simply vanished. Everything in it gone. The scientists had been excited. They had discovered the ultimate weapon. Then something went wrong. The rupture did not stop. It kept growing. Slowly, but growing. The scientists realized with horror that they might have broken space permanently. They spent 3 weeks trying to contain it, trying to close it. Finally, they succeeded, but barely. The rupture had grown to nearly 100 kilometers wide before they stopped it. If they had failed, it might have consumed the entire star system. The project was immediately terminated. All research was sealed. The technology was forbidden. Anyone who tried to continue the work would face criminal charges. The file ended with a simple note. Some weapons are too dangerous even to exist. Taehyun sat back in his chair. His mind was racing. This was it. This was the weapon that could stop the Dominion. It did not matter how strong their shields were. It did not matter how big their ships were. You could not shield against the collapse of space itself. But the danger was real. If they used this weapon and could not control it, They might destroy themselves along with the enemy. Or worse, they might destroy everything. The entire solar system. Maybe more. He looked at the clock. 14 hours left before the Dominion deadline. Taehyun grabbed the file and ran. Admiral Bora looked at Taehyun like he was crazy. They were in her office, deep beneath Seoul. She had been coordinating the fleet preparations, trying to organize a defense she knew would fail. Now this young researcher was telling her about a weapon that was banned for being too dangerous. "You want to tear open space itself," she said slowly. "You want to create a collapse that might spread uncontrollably. You want to risk destroying our own solar system." "Yes," Taehyun said. He knew how it sounded. "But I think we can control it. The old scientists did not have our technology. Our computers are faster. Our understanding of physics is better. I think we can make it work." Bora turned to the other person in the room. Hye-Wan was Earth's chief theoretical physicist. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had been studying the file for 10 minutes. She looked up. "The math works," Hye-Wan said quietly. "In theory, if we position ships at exact coordinates around the Dominion fleet, if we activate the ruptures simultaneously, if we calculate the cascade perfectly, we can contain it. The ruptures will spread through the enemy fleet and then collapse inward, consuming themselves." "If," Bora said. "A lot of ifs." "Yes," Hye-Wan met her eyes. "A lot of ifs. But it is the only option I see that gives us any chance." Taehyun stepped forward. "Admiral, the Dominion has never faced this kind of weapon. They have dimensional shields, but those are designed to deflect energy. This is not energy. This is space itself breaking. Their shields will not help them." Bora walked to her window. It looked out over the city. Seoul at night was beautiful. Millions of lights spreading across the landscape. Somewhere out there, families were having dinner. Children were playing. People were living their lives not knowing that their world might end in ours. "If we do this," Bora said, "whoever activates these devices will likely die. The ships need to be inside the formation to make it work. They will be caught in the collapse." "Yes," Hye-Wan said softly. "The outer ships might survive if they are positioned correctly. But the inner formation will be lost." Bora turned back to them. "How many ships do we need?" Hye-Wan checked her calculations. 800. Positioned in a sphere around the enemy fleet. The more ships we use, the better our chances of controlling the cascade. 800 ships. Bora sat down heavily. 2/3 of our entire fleet. And most of them will not come back. The room was silent. Outside, the city lights continued to glow. Inside, 3 people faced an impossible choice. Use a weapon that might save humanity or might destroy everything. Send 800 ships and their crews to certain death. Gamble the future on calculations that might be wrong. Taehyun thought about his family. His parents in Busan, his brother on Mars, his niece who was only 5 years old. If they did nothing, the Dominion would enslave them all. If they tried this weapon and failed, the niece would never exist at all. "We have to try," he said. "We have to." Admiral Bora looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at Hye-Wan. "Can you make this work?" Hye-Wan did not hesitate. "I will make it work. Or die trying." Bora nodded once. "Then we proceed. I will call for volunteers. God forgive us for what we are about to do." She reached for the communication panel. In 12 hours, humanity would commit an act that would change the galaxy forever. They would use a weapon so terrible that it had been forbidden for 2 centuries. They would sacrifice hundreds of ships and thousands of lives, and they would do it because the alternative was worse. Taehyun watched Bora send out the call for volunteers. He wondered if they would find 800 ships willing to fly into certain death. He wondered if the weapon would work. He wondered if history would remember them as heroes, or as the fools who destroyed everything. He would find out soon enough. They all would. The call went out across all human worlds at once. Admiral Bora's face appeared on every screen, every display, every device that could receive a signal. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the weight behind her words. "People of humanity, we face extinction. The Valtheim Dominion has given us hours to surrender or die. We have chosen a third option. We have found a weapon that might stop them, but it requires sacrifice. We need 800 ships. We need them positioned at exact coordinates in space. We need volunteers who understand they may not come home." She paused. The entire human sphere held its breath. "This is not an order. This is a request. If you have a ship and can fly it, we need you. Military or civilian, large or small. If you can reach the coordinates we are sending, You can save humanity. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. For a moment there was silence across human space. Then the responses started coming in. Ji Woo was a transport pilot on Mars. He flew cargo between the settlements carrying food and equipment and supplies. His ship was old and slow, designed for moving containers, not for war. He was watching Bora's message in his cockpit, eating noodles from a container when the call came. He looked at his ship. The Steady Star was 30 years old. She had been his father's ship before him. She leaked coolant from the starboard engine and the gravity plating was failing in the cargo bay. She was not a warship. She was barely even a good transport ship anymore. Ji Woo thought about his family. His wife was pregnant with their first child. She was safe in the underground shelters. If he did nothing, if he stayed here, the Dominion would come eventually. His child would be born into slavery. He set down his noodles. He started the launch sequence. The Steady Star groaned and shuddered, but her engines came online. Ji Woo sent a message to Mars Command. Transport ship Steady Star volunteering. Sending coordinates now. His wife's voice came through on his personal channel. Ji Woo, no, please. I have to, he said quietly. For the baby. So they can be free, he heard her crying. Come back to me. I will try. He did not make promises he could not keep. The Steady Star lifted off from Mars, joining the growing stream of ships heading toward the rally point. On Europa Station, Subin read the call and made her decision immediately. She commanded a mining vessel, the Rock Dancer. Her crew was 12 people who spent months at a time in the asteroid belt, cutting up rocks and extracting minerals. They were not soldiers. They were workers. She called her crew together in the mess hall, all 12 of them looking at her, some young, some old, all of them knowing what she was about to ask. Admiral Bora needs 800 ships, Subin said. The Rock Dancer can be one of them. But I will not order you. This is volunteer only. If you want to leave, leave now. No shame. Nobody moved. Her first mate, a man named Kyung-soo, spoke up. My parents were slaves in the old wars on Earth. Took 3 generations to win freedom. I will not let my children lose it. Another crew member, a young woman named Hanul, raised her hand. I have a question, Captain. Do we get weapons? Armor, anything? No, Subin said honestly. We position our ship at coordinates and activate a device. That is all, Hanul nodded. Then we better do it right. The Rock Dancer changed course, heading away from the asteroid belt toward the rally coordinates. Behind them, 3 more mining ships followed. Then 5 more. Then a dozen. The miners were coming. Across human space, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Cargo haulers changed course. Passenger liners evacuated their civilians and volunteered. Science vessels left their research stations. Even the old colony ships that had brought humans to the stars decades ago fired up their ancient engines one more time. The military ships were the first to arrive at the rally point. Sleek destroyers and heavy cruisers built for combat. But they were not enough. They only numbered about 400. Humanity needed 800 ships to make the weapon work. Then the civilians started arriving, ships of every size and shape. Vessels that had never been in combat, transports with civilian markings, mining ships with industrial cutting lasers, science ships with sensor arrays, even a few personal yachts, small craft barely bigger than shuttles, piloted by rich civilians who wanted to help. Admiral Bora watched from her flagship, the Indomitable. The ship was Earth's pride, the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. She stood on the command deck as the fleet assembled around her. Each ship that arrived sent a confirmation signal. Each one accepted the coordinates they needed to reach. Her tactical officer, a young man named Dong Hyun, watched the numbers climb. 600 ships, Admiral. 700, 750. Bora felt something she had not felt since this started. Hope. Maybe humanity would pull this off. Maybe there were enough volunteers. 800 ships, Admiral. Dong Hyun's voice cracked slightly. We have 800 ships. The fleet was assembled. Military vessels mixed with civilian craft, hunters and haulers, warships and workers. All of them together, humanity's last desperate gamble. Bora opened the fleet-wide channel. Attention all vessels. You are the bravest people I have ever known. Today we face an enemy that has never been defeated. Today we use a weapon that has never been tested at this scale. Today we risk everything. She looked at the tactical display. The Dominion fleet was 12 hours away. The human fleet was in position, a massive sphere waiting to snap shut like a trap. Each of you has been sent exact coordinates. You must reach those positions precisely. When I give the order, you will activate the devices we have installed on your ships. The devices will create ruptures in space. These ruptures will spread through the enemy fleet. If our calculations are correct, the Dominion will be erased. Bora paused. If our calculations are wrong, we may be erased too. I will not lie to you. The inner formation ships have a low chance of survival. The outer formation ships might make it, but all of us are at risk. She looked at her crew. They looked back at her, scared but determined. You can still leave. No one will judge you. No one will call you coward. You have already done more than anyone could ask. The fleet channel was silent. Not one ship broke formation. Not one ship turned away. Jiwoo sat in the steady star looking at his coordinates. He was in the inner formation. Low chance of survival. He thought about his wife, his unborn child. He checked his systems one more time. Everything was ready. Subin and her crew had their positions. The rock dancer was on the outer edge of the formation. Better odds, but still dangerous. Her crew was calm, professional. They had faced danger before in the asteroid belt. This was just another day of risking their lives for something important. Across the fleet, 800 ships waited. 800 crews prepared. Soldiers and civilians, young and old, volunteers all. Admiral Bora checked the final calculations with Haiwan. The physicist had been working non-stop, checking and rechecking the math. Installing the rupture devices on every ship, making sure every coordinate was perfect. Will it work? Bora asked quietly. Haiwan looked exhausted. I have checked everything 3 times. The math is sound. But we are doing something that has never been done before. I think it will work. I hope it will work. Hope is good enough, Bora said. Hope is all we have. The Dominion fleet appeared on long-range sensors. Thousands of ships moving in perfect formation. They expected an easy victory. They expected the humans to either surrender or die quickly. They did not expect a trap. 8 hours until contact. The human fleet held position in the darkness of space. 800 ships arranged in a perfect sphere, each one exactly where the calculations demanded. No room for error, no room for doubt. Inside those ships, people waited. On Earth, in a small apartment in Seoul, a girl named Minji stood at the window with her father. She was 9 years old and did not understand why the stars looked different tonight. There were more lights up there than usual. Hundreds of moving points that were not stars at all. What are those, Papa? She asked. Her father held her hand. His grip was tight, too tight. Minji looked up and saw tears on his face. Adults were not supposed to cry. That scared her more than anything. Those are brave people, her father said softly. They are protecting us. From what? From bad people who want to hurt us. Minji watched the lights. Will they win? Her father did not answer for a long time. I hope so, baby. I hope so. On Luna Station, Seokjin sat in his cabin recording a message. He was a civilian volunteer, piloting a transport ship called Morning Grace. He had joined the fleet knowing he would probably die. His daughter was safe in the outer colonies, far from the battle. She was only 6 years old. He wanted her to know him even if he did not come back. Hey, little one, he said to the camera. Papa has to do something important today. I want you to know I love you very much. I want you to know that everything I do for you, so you can grow up free, so you can look at the stars and not be afraid. He stopped trying to find the right words. Your grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days on Earth. Before the colonies, she said the hardest thing in life was making choices. Easy choices do not matter. Anyone can make easy choices. But hard choices, the ones that cost you everything, those are the ones that show who you really are. Seokjin smiled even though his eyes were wet. This is a hard choice, baby. But it is the right choice. Remember that. When you are older and you face hard choices, remember that your papa faced one too, and he chose to fight for your future. He ended the recording and sent it to the secure storage on the outer colony. If he died today, she would get it eventually. If he survived, he could delete it later and feel embarrassed about being so emotional. He checked his systems. The rupture device was installed in his cargo bay. A simple cylinder about 2 meters long, filled with technology he did not understand. When Admiral Bora gave the order, he would activate it. The device would tear open space. Everything near it would vanish into nothing, including him. Seokjin thought about his daughter's laugh. The way she said his name, the last time he hugged her. He wiped his eyes and focused on his controls. Time to be brave. In the command center beneath Seoul, Haiwan ran the calculations for the 100th time. She had not slept. Could not sleep. The numbers had to be perfect. One mistake and the cascade would spread uncontrollably. One error and they would destroy themselves. Taehyun brought her coffee. You should rest. I will rest when this is over. She did not look up from her screens. If I made a mistake, if I got something wrong, 800 ships will die for nothing. You did not make a mistake. How do you know? She finally looked at him. Her eyes were red and exhausted. How can anyone know? We are attempting something that was banned because it was too dangerous. We are gambling with the fate of humanity based on 200-year-old research and my calculations. Taehyun sat down next to her. I know because you are the smartest person I have ever met. I know because you have checked everything multiple times. I know because if anyone can make this work, it is you. Haiwan looked back at her screens. The numbers stared back at her. Equations that described the end of space itself. She thought about all the people in those 800 ships, all the lives depending on her math being correct. I hope you are right, she whispered. Admiral Bo-Ra walked through the Indomitable one last time. Her flagship was Earth's finest vessel, equipped with the best weapons, the strongest shields, the fastest engines. None of it would matter today. The Indomitable was positioned at the center of the formation, the exact middle of the trap, the lowest chance of survival. She stopped in the mess hall. Her crew was there, eating what might be their last meal, young men and women in uniform. They looked up when she entered, starting to stand at attention. As you were, Bo-Ra said. She got herself a cup of coffee and sat down with them. Just another person, not an admiral. A young ensign named Ji Young spoke nervously. Admiral, can I ask a question? Of course. Are we going to die today? The mess hall went silent. Everyone waited for the answer. Bo-Ra did not look away. Did not sugarcoat it, probably, she said. The Indomitable is at the center. We will activate our rupture device first. The cascade will spread outward from us. We will be at ground zero. Ji Young nodded slowly. Then why are we doing this? Bo-Ra looked at each of them. Because someone has to. Because if we do not, humanity becomes slaves. Because your children and their children deserve to be free. She paused. And because we are the ones who can. That is enough. Another crew member, older with gray in his hair, raised his cup. For humanity, the others joined in. For humanity, Bo-Ra raised her own cup. They drank together in silence. It was the best coffee she had ever tasted. 4 hours until contact. The Dominion fleet appeared on long-range sensors. Thousands of massive warships moving in perfect formation. They came steadily, confident, unstoppable. They had done this countless times before. Another conquest. Another victory. Another species added to their empire. Commander Yan Wu stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship. He was tall and armored, his species bred for war. He looked at the human fleet on his displays and felt something like amusement. The humans had gathered their pathetic ships into a sphere. Did they think they could fight? Did they think their primitive weapons could harm the Dominion? Analysis, he commanded. His tactical officer studied the human formation. 800 vessels. Mix of military and civilian craft. They are holding position, not advancing, not retreating. They wait to surrender, Yan Wu said, or they wait to die bravely. It does not matter. Sir, their formation is unusual. The spacing is very precise. Too precise for a standard defensive pattern. Yan Wu looked closer. The human ships were arranged in a perfect sphere, each one at an exact distance from the others. The formation looked almost mathematical, strange but not threatening. Perhaps they try to confuse us, he said. Or perhaps they simply do not know how to fight. Proceed with the attack plan. We will break their formation and destroy their will to resist. Then we will take their worlds. The Dominion fleet continued forward. Weapons charging. Shields at maximum. Ready to crush the humans like insects, 2 hours until contact. In the human fleet, people made peace with their choices. They said goodbyes. They prayed to whatever gods they believed in. They held the hands of their crewmates. They thought about home. Admiral Bo-Ra opened the fleet-wide channel one final time. All ships, this is Bo-Ra. The enemy is in range. We are committed. Whatever happens next, know that you are heroes. Know that humanity will remember you. Know that we faced extinction and we chose to fight. She paused, looking at her own crew on the Indomitable's bridge. They looked back at her with trust and fear and courage. Today we show the galaxy what it means to be human. Today we pay the price for tomorrow's freedom, for Earth, for the colonies, for every child who will grow up free because of what we do today. Bora's hand moved to the activation control. Around her 800 ships waited, 800 crews ready to give everything. All ships, she said quietly, prepare to activate on my mark. May God have mercy on us all. The Dominion fleet crossed the threshold. They entered the sphere of human ships. The trap was set. The moment had come. Bora looked at the stars one last time. She thought about her own children, safe in the shelters. She thought about every human child everywhere. All the future generations who would live because of this moment. For humanity, she whispered. Her hand moved toward the activation button. The universe held its breath. Admiral Bora's voice was steady. All ships. Activate on my mark. 3. Across 800 vessels, fingers moved to activation buttons. Hearts pounded. Breathing stopped. 2. The Dominion fleet continued forward, weapons charging. They expected a battle. They expected to see primitive missiles and energy weapons. They expected an easy victory. 1. Jiwoo gripped his controls on the steady star. Subin held hands with her crew on the rock dancer. Seokjin closed his eyes and thought of his daughter. 800 crews waited for the final word. Mark. 800 devices activated simultaneously. For a single heartbeat, nothing happened. Then space began to scream. The ruptures started small, tiny tears in reality, invisible to the naked eye. But they spread fast, faster than light, faster than thought. Space itself was breaking and the breaks were growing. On the Indomitable's bridge, Admiral Bora watched the displays. The ruptures appeared as dark spots on the sensors. Empty places where nothing existed. Not even vacuum. Just absolute nothing. The spots grew larger. Cascade is forming, her tactical officer reported. His voice shook. It is working. God help us, it is working. The ruptures reached toward each other like cracks in glass. When they met, they merged, creating bigger tiers. The cascade was spreading through the Dominion fleet exactly as predicted. Space was collapsing inward, consuming everything it touched. Commander Yanwu felt fear for the first time in his life. His sensors showed impossible readings. Space itself was disappearing. Ships on his flanks simply vanished, not destroyed but erased. One moment they existed, the next moment there was nothing. Not even debris. Shields up. Maximum power! He shouted. The Dominion ships raised their dimensional shields. Technology that could deflect energy weapons, absorb missiles, block every known form of attack. The shields glowed with power. The ruptures touched the shields and passed through them like they were not even there. Yanwu watched 3 of his capital ships disappear. Massive vessels, each one carrying 10,000 crew. Gone. Just gone. The space where they had been was now empty. Not black, not void. Something worse than empty. What is this? He whispered. What have they done? His science officer was screaming at his console. It is a subspace collapse. They are tearing apart reality. Our shields cannot stop it. Nothing can stop it. The cascade spread faster. It was beautiful and terrible. Reality folding in on itself, consuming the Dominion fleet ship by ship. The ruptures formed patterns, geometric shapes of destruction. The mathematical precision of the human formation now made horrible sense. Each ship had been positioned to create the perfect cascade. Yanwu tried to order a retreat. Too late. The ruptures were surrounding his fleet. The trap had snapped shut. Thousands of Dominion warships, the pride of an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years, were being erased from existence. On the steady star, Jiwoo felt his ship shaking. The ruptures were close now, very close. His displays showed tears in space just kilometers away. He should have been terrified, but instead he felt calm. He had done his part. His child would be born free. The ship's computer started screaming warnings. Hull stress, power fluctuations, reality breakdown. Jiwoo ignored them all. He kept his position exactly, making sure his rupture device stayed active. The cascade needed every ship to work properly. A Dominion cruiser appeared next to him, trying to flee the destruction. It was massive, beautiful in a terrible way. Jiwoo could see its shields glowing bright as it tried to protect itself. The shields meant nothing. A rupture touched the cruiser's bow and spread backward like acid-eating metal. The ship folded in on itself, compressed into nothing, and was gone. Jiwoo closed his eyes. I love you, he said to his wife, even though she could not hear him. Both of you. The rupture reached the steady star, the old transport ship that had carried cargo for 30 years. The ship his father had flown before him. For a moment, Jiwoo felt everything stop. Then there was nothing. On the rock dancer, Subin watched the cascade spread through the inner formation. Ships were disappearing. So many ships. The volunteers who had known they probably would not survive. Her crew watched in silence. Captain, Kyung-soo said quietly. The inner formation is gone. All of them, Subin nodded. She had known this would happen. They all had, but knowing and seeing were different things. She thought about Jiwoo and Seokjin and all the others. All the brave people who had given everything. Are we holding position? She asked. Yes, Captain. The outer formation is stable. The cascade is contained. Then their sacrifice means something. Keep the device active. Do not stop until this is over. The rock dancer held position on the edge of the collapsing space. The ruptures reached their maximum extent and stopped spreading outward. Hyewan's calculations were correct. The cascade was contained. Now it would collapse inward, consuming itself and everything trapped inside. The Dominion fleet was in chaos. Ships tried to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The ruptures surrounded them completely, a sphere of destruction with no exit. Yanwoo's flagship was one of the last to disappear. His final thought was of his empire, his people, his certainty that they were unbeatable. He had been wrong. The cascade reached its peak and began to collapse. The ruptures merged together, creating a massive wound in space at the center of where the Dominion fleet had been. Everything pulled inward. Ships that were still somehow intact were dragged into the collapsing tear. The wound in reality grew smaller and smaller, compressing everything into a single point. At the command center on Earth, Hyewan watched the readings. Her calculations had predicted this moment. The cascade would consume itself, sealing the tears in space. Reality would heal. But watching it happen was still terrifying. If she had been wrong, if the collapse continued, it would spread across the solar system. Taehyun stood next to her. How long until we know? 30 seconds. Her voice was barely a whisper. If it does not stop in 30 seconds, it will not stop at all. They watched the countdown. 20 seconds, 15, 10. The rupture continued to shrink. 5 seconds, 3, 2, 1. The rupture vanished. Space sealed itself. Reality returned to normal. The wound was healed. The command center erupted in cheers. Scientists hugged each other. Military officers shouted in relief. Hee-won collapsed in her chair, shaking. Taehyun put his hand on her shoulder. You did it, he said. You saved us. In orbit, the surviving ships of the human fleet looked at empty space. Where the Dominion Armada had been, there was nothing. 50,000 warships erased from existence. The greatest military fleet in the galaxy destroyed in minutes. Subin's crew sat in stunned silence. They had survived. Somehow impossibly they had survived. But the cost was clear. The inner formation was gone. 200 ships and their crews had vanished with the enemy. Captain, Hanul said softly, should we go home? Subin thought about all the people who would not go home. Jiwoo and Seokjin and Admiral Bora, the Indomitable and the Steady Star and 200 other ships. All gone, yes, she said. Let's go home. Someone needs to tell their stories. On Earth, Minji watched the sky with her father. Some of the lights had gone out. She did not understand what that meant. She did not know that each vanished light was a ship full of people who had died to protect her. Did they win, Papa? She asked. Her father was crying openly now. Yes, baby, they won. They saved us all. Commander Yanwoo's last transmission reached the Dominion homeworld 17 minutes after the battle. It was just 3 seconds of audio, cut off mid-sentence. Attention, Dominion Command. The human fleet has deployed an unknown weapon. Subspace collapse detected. We are trapped. Send rain. Then silence. The Dominion Empire received the message and did not understand. How could their greatest fleet simply disappear? How could an inferior species destroy 50,000 warships? It was impossible. But it had happened. Across the galaxy, species that had been enslaved for thousands of years heard the news. The unbeatable enemy had been beaten by humans, a species that most of them had never heard of, a young race that had only reached the stars 50 years ago. If the Dominion could fall, anything was possible. In the ruins of the battle, only one human ship remained where the inner formation had been. One single vessel badly damaged but still intact. Against all odds, against every calculation, the Indomitable had survived. But its crew had not been so lucky. Admiral Bora sat in her command chair, badly injured. Her bridge crew was dead or dying around her. The ship's systems were failing. Life support was critical. She managed to activate the communications array one last time. Her message reached Earth, her voice weak but clear. "This is Admiral Bora. The Dominion fleet is destroyed." The weapon worked. Tell them we held the line." The transmission ended. The Indomitable's power failed completely. In the silence of space, the flagship drifted, a broken monument to the price of victory. Humanity had won. But the cost had been terrible, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Radio signals, quantum transmissions, ship captains carrying messages between stars. Everywhere the story was the same. The Valtime Dominion's greatest fleet was gone, destroyed, by humans. On the Dominion homeworld, the ruling council met in emergency session. They were a group of 12 elders who had led their empire for centuries. They sat in a chamber carved from black stone, a room that had witnessed 10,000 years of conquest and victory. Today it witnessed something new: fear. 50,000 ships, one elder said. Our entire core battle fleet. How is this possible? They watched the recording from Commander Yan Wu's ship over and over. The last moments before the cascade consumed them. Ships disappearing into nothing, space itself collapsing. The humans had used a weapon that should not exist. A weapon that broke reality. We must respond, another elder said. We must show strength. If the other species think we are weak, they will rebel. They already are rebelling, a third elder replied. We have reports from 17 sectors, uprisings, attacks on our garrisons. The conquered species are watching what happened. They think we can be beaten now. The council sat in silence. For 10,000 years, the Dominion had ruled through fear. Their military was unbeatable. Their technology was superior. Their will was absolute. Now that certainty was broken, one battle had shattered the illusion of invincibility. We declare total war on the humans, the eldest council member said. Every ship, every weapon, every resource. We will destroy their worlds, burn their colonies, erase them from existence. We will show the galaxy what happens when someone challenges the Dominion. The vote was unanimous. The Dominion Empire mobilized for total war. Every remaining fleet, every soldier, every weapon system. They would crush humanity completely. The humans had won one battle. They would not win the war, but something was wrong. The conquered species were watching, and they were learning. On a world called Trevos, a species that had been enslaved for 3,000 years saw the news about the human victory. They had been warriors once before the Dominion conquered them. They still remembered the stories of their freedom. A young Trevosi named Korak stood in a secret meeting room with 100 others. They had been planning rebellion for years but always stopped themselves. What was the point? The Dominion could not be defeated. Until now, the humans did it, Korak said. One battle. They destroyed the core fleet in one battle. An older Trevosi spoke up. The humans had a weapon. We do not have such weapons. We do not need their weapon. We need their courage. Korak looked at the others. The Dominion is not invincible. The humans proved it. If we all rise together, if all the conquered species fight at once, we can win our freedom. The meeting room erupted in discussion. Some agreed. Some thought it was suicide. But they all shared one thing now: hope. For the first time in 3,000 years, they had hope. Across Dominion space, the same scene repeated. Conquered species hearing about the human victory. Secret meetings. Whispered plans. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years was beginning to crack. On Earth, humanity tried to process what had happened. They had won. The Dominion fleet was destroyed. But the cost was terrible. 200 ships gone. Over 12,000 people dead, including Admiral Bora. They found the Indomitable 3 days after the battle. The flagship was drifting in space, its power dead, its hull scarred by the edge effects of the cascade. Rescue ships approached carefully, not knowing what they would find. Captain Daejung led the rescue team. He had survived the battle on his station above New Busan. Now he walked through the silent corridors of the Indomitable, searching for survivors. His team found bodies, brave men and women who had given everything. They found the bridge crew dead at their stations. They found Admiral Bora in her command chair. She had died from her injuries hours after sending her final message. Her hand was still on the armrest, her eyes closed. She looked peaceful. Dae-jung stood before her and saluted. He did not speak. There were no words big enough for what she had done. He carefully removed her rank insignia and her personal effects. Someone would need to give these to her family. They recovered what they could from the Indomitable. The bodies, the ship's logs, the recordings of the battle. Then they left the flagship where it was. A monument in space, a reminder of the price of freedom. On Mars, Jiwoo's wife gave birth to their daughter 3 weeks after the battle. She named her Jiwoo after her father who would never meet her. She held the baby and cried for hours. Then she took the baby to see the memorial that was being built in the capital city. The memorial was simple, a wall of black stone with 12,000 names carved into it. Every person who had died in the battle. Jiwoo's name was there along with Seok Jin and Admiral Bora and all the others. Above the wall were the words, "They held the line." Jiwoo's wife stood before her husband's name with their daughter. "Your papa was a hero," she whispered to the baby. "He saved everyone. Remember that. Always remember that." Across human space, memorials appeared. Every colony, every station, every ship. Places where people could come and remember the ones who did not come home. Some were grand monuments. Some were simple plaques. All of them carried the same names. The same message. We remember, but humanity did not have time to mourn properly. The Dominion had declared total war. Intelligence reports showed massive military mobilization. Fleets gathering, weapon systems activating. The Dominion was coming and they were bringing everything they had. The galactic community sent messages to Earth. Most were sympathetic. Some offered quiet support. But none offered military aid. Nobody wanted to face the Dominion directly. Humanity had won one battle, but they were still alone. In the command center beneath Seoul, the new military leadership met. Admiral Bora was gone. Someone had to take her place. The choice was obvious. Captain Dae-jung accepted the promotion to admiral. He did not want it. But somebody had to lead. Taehyun and Hee-won were there too. The researcher who found the weapon. The physicist who made it work. They looked exhausted. They had not slept properly since the battle. "Can we use the weapon again?" Dae-jung asked. Hee-won shook her head. "No, we barely controlled it the first time. The calculations required perfect conditions, perfect positioning. We got lucky. If we try again, we might not be so lucky. We might destroy ourselves. Then what do we do? The Dominion is coming with everything they have." Taehyun spoke up. "We do not fight them alone. The conquered species are rebelling. We have been monitoring communications across Dominion space. Uprisings on dozens of worlds. The Empire is fracturing." Dae-jung looked at the star charts. "Can we help them? Maybe. If we send military advisors, weapons, technology. We are not strong enough to defeat the Dominion in open war. But we can help others defeat them from within." It was a plan. Not a great plan, but a plan. Humanity began reaching out to the rebel groups across Dominion space. Sending encrypted messages, offering support, sharing intelligence about Dominion military movements. The response was overwhelming. Species that humanity had never heard of sent messages asking for help, asking for hope. They had seen what humanity did. They wanted to do the same. On Earth, Minji grew older in a world that was different from the one her parents knew. The Dominion was still a threat, but it was a threat that could be beaten. Her father told her stories about the battle, about the brave people who flew into danger to save everyone else, about Admiral Bora and Jiwoo and all the others. Minji listened to the stories and made a decision. When she was old enough, she would join the fleet. She would protect people like they had protected her. It was what heroes did. In the halls of power on the Dominion homeworld, the elders watched their empire crack, rebellion spreading, resources stretched thin, their military trying to fight on 100 fronts at once. They had declared total war on humanity, but they could not even reach human space anymore. Too many other problems, too many fires to put out. One elder spoke what they were all thinking. We should have never attacked the humans, but it was too late for regrets. The damage was done. The galaxy had changed. The species that had been conquered for thousands of years were fighting back, and they were winning. Humanity had destroyed the galaxy's greatest power in one day, but the aftermath would last for years. The Dominion Empire was dying, and dying empires were dangerous. The war was not over. It was just beginning, but now humanity did not fight alone. They had allies. They had hope. And they had proven something important. Tyranny could fall, no matter how strong, no matter how ancient. It could fall. The galaxy was learning that lesson, and the Dominion was learning it too. Too late to save themselves, but not too late to change everything. The memorial in Seoul grew every day. People brought flowers, candles, small tokens of remembrance. The wall with 12,000 names became a place of pilgrimage. Parents brought their children to see the names, to understand what had been given for their freedom. Minji came to the memorial every week with her father. She had a ritual now. She would read 10 names out loud, speaking them carefully so they would not be forgotten. This week she read Jiwoo's name. She did not know who he was, but she spoke his name anyway. Her father had taught her that every name mattered. Jiwoo, she said clearly. Transport pilot, steady star. Around her other people did the same, speaking names, telling stories. A woman talked about her brother who died on a mining ship. A man placed a photo of his wife who served on the Indomitable. An old veteran saluted the wall with tears running down his face. Minji's father watched his daughter and thought about the future. She was growing up in a different world than he had known. A world where humans had faced extinction and survived. A world where ordinary people became heroes. He hoped she would never have to make the choices those 12,000 people made. But if she did, he hoped she would have their courage. In the command center, Admiral Dae-jung looked at reports from across the galaxy. The situation was complex. The Dominion Empire was collapsing, but slowly. They still controlled hundreds of systems. They still had massive military forces. But those forces were spread too thin now, fighting rebellions everywhere. Update from the Travosi sector, his aide reported. The rebels have taken control of 3 planets. The Dominion garrison withdrew rather than fight. Dae-jung nodded. This was happening all over former Dominion space. Species that had been conquered for thousands of years were reclaiming their freedom. Some fights were bloody, some were peaceful. But the pattern was clear. The Empire was breaking apart from within. What about the Dominion response? They are pulling back toward their core systems, consolidating their forces. They know they cannot hold everything anymore. It was strange. Humanity had won one battle, but that battle had changed the entire galactic power structure. The Dominion was not defeated yet, but they were no longer invincible. And that made all the difference. Captain Subin came to Earth for the memorial ceremony. 3 months after the battle, humanity was finally holding a formal remembrance. Every survivor had been invited. She walked through Seoul and marveled at how normal everything looked. People going to work, children playing, life continuing. Because of what 200 ships had done, the ceremony was held at night under the stars. A stage had been erected near the memorial wall. Thousands of people gathered, maybe tens of thousands. Subin stood with the other survivors, a small group who had flown into the cascade and somehow lived to tell about it. Admiral Dae-jung spoke first. He talked about courage and sacrifice, about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. His voice was strong, but Subin could hear the emotion beneath it. He had known many of the dead personally. They had been his friends, his colleagues, his fellow officers. They did not die as soldiers, Dae-jung said. Most of them were not soldiers at all. They were transport pilots and miners and scientists. They were parents and children and friends. They were people who made a choice. When humanity faced extinction, they chose to stand and fight. They chose to give everything so that we could have tomorrow. He paused, looking at the crowd. We owe them a debt we can never repay, but we can honor them. We can remember them. We can make sure their sacrifice meant something. Haiwan spoke next. She looked small on the big stage, still tired even after 3 months. She explained what the weapon had done, in simple terms that everyone could understand. How it had torn apart space. How it had erased the Dominion fleet. How close they had come to disaster. The calculations had to be perfect, she said. One small error and we would have destroyed ourselves. The people in those 200 ships had to hold their positions exactly. They had to trust my math with their lives. Her voice cracked. They trusted me, and some of them died because of it. Tai-hyun put his hand on her shoulder. He spoke to the crowd. What Hee-won is not saying is that she saved us all. Her calculations worked. The weapon did exactly what it was supposed to do. Those 200 ships were in the most dangerous positions because that was what the math required. They knew the risks. They accepted them anyway. The ceremony continued. Survivors told their stories. Subin talked about the rock dancer and her crew, how they had held position on the edge of the cascade, how they had watched the inner formation disappear, how they had lived while others died, and how that guilt would stay with them forever. A young woman came forward with a baby. Jiwoo's wife. She stood at the microphone holding their daughter, who was now 3 months old and sleeping peacefully. "My husband was a transport pilot," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "He flew cargo. Boring stuff. Food and equipment and supplies. He always said his job was not glamorous, but it was important. People needed what he carried." She looked down at the baby. When the call came, he did not hesitate. He knew he might not come back. He left me a message. He said he was doing this so our daughter could grow up free, so she could look at the stars and not be afraid. She held up the baby. "This is Jiwoo, named after her father. She will never know him, but she will know what he did. She will know that her father was a hero." There was not a dry eye in the crowd. Subin cried. Daejung cried. Even Taehyun and Heewon were crying. The baby Jiwoo woke up and started fussing. Her mother rocked her gently, whispering soft words that only they could hear. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. 12,000 names on a wall. 12,000 lives given. 12,000 reasons to remember. Then something unexpected happened. Minji walked up to the stage. Her father tried to stop her, but she slipped away from him. She was just a child, 9 years old, but she walked with purpose. She took the microphone. "My name is Minji," she said. Her voice was small but clear. "I am 9 years old. On the day of the battle, I watched the stars with my father. I did not understand what was happening, but now I do." She looked at the crowd, thousands of adults looking back at her. "I want to say thank you. To all the people who died. To Admiral Bora and Jiwoo and Seok Jin and everyone else. You saved me. You saved all the kids. We will not forget." She walked to the memorial wall. She had brought a small plant with her, a seedling in a pot. She placed it at the base of the wall. "This is a tree," she said. "It is small now, but it will grow big. I am going to plant 1 tree for every person who died. 12,000 trees. So we always remember." The crowd was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Soon thousands of people were applauding, the sound echoing off the buildings. Minji looked surprised, then scared, then proud. Her father came and took her hand, leading her back to the crowd. But the idea had taken root. The Garden of Silence, 12,000 trees planted in memorial. It became a reality. People from all over Earth donated land on the edge of Seoul. Volunteers came to help plant. Each tree was marked with a name: Jiwoo, Seokjin, Bora, all 12,000 of them. Years later, the garden would become one of the most visited places on Earth. People would walk among the trees and remember. Children would climb them and play, and their parents would tell them the stories. The trees would grow tall and strong, living monuments to the price of freedom. But that was in the future. Today, the war continued. The Dominion Empire was dying, but death was slow. They lost worlds every week. Species broke free and reclaimed their independence. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years was contracting, pulling back toward its core systems. But they were still dangerous, still powerful, still capable of terrible vengeance. Humanity sent aid to the rebel groups, weapons, supplies, military advisors who taught tactics and strategy. Earth became a symbol, a rallying point for all the species fighting for freedom, the humans who had destroyed the impossible enemy. The proof that tyranny could fall. Captain Daejung, now Admiral Daejung, led diplomatic efforts. He met with representatives from dozens of species. Some he had never heard of before. All of them had the same story. Conquered, enslaved, desperate for freedom. He helped where he could. Humanity was not strong enough to fight the Dominion alone. But together with all these other species, maybe they could win. The Dominion made one fatal mistake, Daejung told a council of rebel leaders. They believed their own propaganda. They thought they were invincible. They thought fear was enough to control people. But fear only works until someone stands up and fights back. Then fear becomes hope, and hope spreads faster than fear ever could. The rebels listened. They had all seen their own people stand up. Inspired by what humanity had done. One battle, one day. It had changed everything. In the ruins of the Dominion Empire, the elders met for the last time. Their capital world was besieged. Rebel fleets surrounded the planet. The empire was gone. All that remained was this one world and a handful of loyal systems. "We could have ruled forever," one elder said, "if we had never attacked the humans." No, another replied. We were dying long before the humans. We just did not know it.